brings to a little bit of a closed circle. Welcome, Susan. This is an
Hello.
this is an Olympic year, and it's also the end of COVID. And last year, we had a sort of an interesting winter brain turns with Kate Carrico, who I was lucky enough to spend time with in the lab. And Kate is the scientist who developed the basis for the science of the RNA vaccines. And Kate will likely win the Nobel Prize this year. When I was with her, she had a 16, 17-year-old daughter that I'd met a few times who decided to go to Penn, began to row at Penn. I was a rower at Penn, and lo and behold, she became the most decorated rower in UPenn history, and you're looking at her. So I do believe that the Francia Carrico family will become the first in world history to have a gold medalist in the World Olympics and a Nobel Prize winner in the same family. I just thought that Susan's journey through college and into rowing, and then her great accomplishments, and probably having some sort of time in the desert after the incredible accomplishments she had, where she really had to think deeply about what she was going to do with her life, because I'm sure she may talked about the difficulty of being an Olympic athlete financially and then getting her life together. But lo and behold, she's established herself in a great career in biotech. She has a new baby herself with her 6'12" or 6'13" husband. So I'm sure her child will be very athletic. And I'm really excited to have you on board.
He's already 6 feet. He's already 6 feet. No, just kidding.
We're really excited to have you here.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. And it's funny, I grew up and I feel like I just knew David from almost like childhood. You and my mom working in the lab together, and I always appreciated your support for her. So, people have asked me about my journey. I'm going to share a little bit of a PowerPoint, just a couple pictures that kind of will frame the picture here. So I'm going to share my screen. Actually, now that I'm in webinar mode.
You have to go the bottom next to the bottom part says share screen.
Oh yeah. I swear I've done this before.
You're fine.
All right, cool. All right, so my story is Perseverance 101. My family came from behind the Iron Curtain, and we ended up going for Olympic gold, and potentially maybe this fall they will announce the Nobel Prize for my mother. So just wanted to say hello again. My name is Susan Francia. Just wondering if maybe some of you saw my name, you throw it into Google, you see a lot of really cool, fun pictures. Oh my gosh, American Ninja Warrior, like who is this person? For the record, I did do American Ninja Warrior. I lasted all of 5 seconds on there, fell right off the second obstacle. So you won't see a long clip there. See lots of pictures of gold medals and everything. What a glamorous life. Great. But we actually started on really very humble beginnings. This is my family, my mom and my dad. I'm an only child. Explains a lot. I grew up and I was born in Hungary, and my parents were going to raise me there. My mom is a biochemist, as David was mentioning, and she had really, kind of struggled to keep work, and just because of the way the system was in Hungary. And so she applied for a couple of different jobs, got one in the US. But at the time in Hungary, this is the time of the Iron Curtain, you couldn't leave the country with more than $50. And basically because they didn't want people to leave. Like that's what, Iron Curtain meant. They didn't want people leaving the country. You were pretty much kind of stuck there. So when my mom got this job, imagine taking a 2.5-year-old to another country to move with $100, because $50, it would be $50 per person, except for the person who got the work or whatever, who had the job. So it would have been $100 total. But my parents ended up, they sold their car on the black market and were able to convert it to foreign currency. And so they were able to come to the US with foreign currency. But of course, again, you can't take it out. And so my parents and my mom ended up sewing this money into this teddy bear that you see right here. And when we flew over to the US, this money was sewed into the teddy bear. And, so my parents are at the plane, we're always saying like, oh, where's the child? Oh, where's the teddy bear? Because that's our life savings in there. And so we really came here with very, very humble beginnings. But, I had no idea, right? I'm like 2.5. And my parents made the best life that they could for me. My mom started working at Temple, then moved over to Penn. I went to a public high school, as David said. So my husband's very tall, and I chose a tall husband because I'm also very tall. I'm 6'2". And I wasn't a great athlete to start off with. So I'm 6'2". I'm in the 9th grade. Every coach is like, oh, you're going to be such a great athlete. I was like, oh, okay, this sounds great. But as you can see here in the high jump, and this woman is not very tall. Yeah, so the sports really it didn't go, but I liked being a part of something. I liked being part of a team, and sometimes it doesn't even matter what the team is. It's just like that camaraderie and, having that common goal. So I did get a couple awards, and I'm not joking. My senior year, I got 2 awards, and they were both for most spirited, just in different sports. I now go and take it was a tiny little trophy. I think it was just because every other athlete got some kind of award. So they were like, oh, what can we give Susan? Oh, she's always the cheerleader. We'll give her spirited. But anyway, I thought to myself, I won't be an athlete. That's fine. And as Dr. Langer was saying, I went to Penn, and I just figured, I'll do academics and really focus on my studies. And I actually I struggled without having that, that team, partially because I just had no, time management skills I kind of struggled with, because now I had so much free time. I wasn't part of sports teams or different clubs. And actually, even as I was hearing the previous lecture, it is good to be a part of something and to have something else besides what you're focused on. So at Penn, I figured I would just focus on academics, but sports ended up really helping that focus on academics. So it was really important to me to have just something else. And here I am with starting out my rowing career. And again, I thought this was going to be the same type of story where, I show up and they're like, you're going to be great. And then I really wasn't. And here they said, oh yeah, you're 6'2". And I would get on the rowing machine. I don't know if any of you guys have been on the erg rowing machine. But I would start pulling and the coach would be like, wow, that's pretty good. But I didn't really have the fitness to carry over to longer workouts, but that's okay. There's some potential there. And he said to me, you could go to the Olympics. And I thought, I'm finally doing really well at Penn. I'm on the dean's list. Like, what? Like, go to the Olympics? That's crazy. I'm just trying to get a job, And by the time the end of the 4 years came around at Penn, I thought, okay, you know what? This is a once in a lifetime opportunity. I'll take it. Like, let's try this out. And so my parents were very surprised that, they thought of their humble beginnings, all the sacrifices for, me to, be raised in the US and then go to Penn and pay for all of that. And then all of a sudden I'm like, hey, actually, I'm going to go be an athlete. So it was a big shock, but, my parents were very supportive. They said, okay, most spirited, are you sure you're going to be the Olympian? And I thought, okay, yeah, you're right. And I had this thought like, okay, they're right. I really better do my absolute best and just give this my all. And so actually that first year I did make the national team. It was at the 2005 World Championships. I got to wear red, white, and blue. That was very exciting to represent the US. And the US actually at that time, they were coming off the 2004 Olympics and they had gotten a silver medal. And I was like, hey, you know what? This is so cool. I mean, part of this winning team. We're going to be raking in all the medals. And then this is what happened. This is the results at the World Championships. I am in boat number 2 here in the white, and I'm this person right here just struggling. This is the look of pain. You know, it's interesting. I reflect on my mom's journey, and maybe some of you have heard her name. And sometimes I think the best thing for us is to have one of these kinds of failures where you think that it's going to go great, and you know we're expected to have done well, and you don't, and you fall short. And as you can see, we didn't fall short by very much. I mean, obviously first place here is crossed the line well ahead of us, but you know, we ended up missing out on a medal by, you know, just a couple feet, if that. And this loss was probably one of the best things to happen to our entire team, because we thought about this loss every single day going into training. And you know, I coached rowing for quite a number of years, and I found that a lot of the athletes, you know, going through, you know, high school and even college, they didn't really have a lot of failures because everyone was so A-type that they almost just didn't know how to deal with failure. And I think it's really important to even just have these moments where it doesn't work out how you expected. And no matter how far you worked, oh my gosh, I worked so hard and I came up short. And then you're like, oh, well, now what? And I think these kinds of lessons, you learn so much more about yourself. All right, so where to from here? Like, let me learn from this experience. And this is where that resilience comes in of like, all right, well, what next? Like, am I gonna say, well, shoot, I quit? Or is it that you're gonna work 10 times harder? And my mom experienced a lot of these kinds of failures as well. And she always then challenged herself. So for her, it was convincing others that messenger RNA is a fantastic, you know, platform as a technology that can be used for so many things. It could be used in, you know, to cure cancer, or, you know, it could be a possible vaccine. And sometimes even trying to convince others. It's just, she didn't have success. But then 2006 World Championships next year, as you can see, now we're ahead in some very choppy water. And it was just really one of the greatest wins for us. I think that's the other good thing about having these failures, is that then I promise you, and you know, I know a lot of you have also gone through some of these ups and downs, maybe not necessarily in at rowing championships, but you definitely appreciate these wins so much more. So then, you know, as I'm going along and my parents are like, okay, all right, this rowing's something. I ended up going through a couple world championships. Now the US is winning, how great. And, you know, so cool. We got to sing the national anthem. But I somehow made the 2008 Olympic team. I was one of the last people to make it, even though I had been on the team and was a mainstay in the boat. Our coach knew that there were a lot of new kids, so kids who hadn't actually competed at the Olympics before. And the coach thought, oh my gosh, these kids are going to be on like the world stage, the Olympics. Wow. How are we going to put them through the ringer so that when they show up at the world stage, they're not nervous, right? Because shoot, I didn't know how I was going to respond, how I was going to feel or act when I got to the Olympics. So our coach actually a month before the naming date, the selection date, said, you know, guys, I don't know who's going to be in this boat. we're like, what? We've been in here for now 3 years. I felt like I was headed, all right, in the right direction. And again, it was like the coach kind of threw us for a loop, and we just raced each other every day. And that's one of the things with being on a team or racing. And then there's only 8 spots with a team of 30 that has already been like whittled down to 30. So it was quite the challenge. And just to even think, all right, hopefully I'm the one that makes it, and you just pull as hard as you can and make sure that your butt ends up in one of those seats. And I think it was like 1 month of just racing every single day. And I have to tell you, I was so relieved when the coach like shook my hand. He said, "Welcome to the 2008 Olympic team." I was like, thank God. I almost like don't even want to go. I just want to make it, right? But then that preparation, all of those hours, and internally just always getting myself ramped up. When we made it to Beijing and we sat at that starting line, and people have asked me, "Oh, were you nervous?" It's like, no, my coach put me through hell to get here, so I'm just excited, and it's the same as going into a test or a presentation or anything. If you know the material, if you've done all the preparation, you can be pretty calm. You know your stuff. And it was the same way here. We had won some races. I knew how the boat felt. And it was just a really great experience to just go. We ended up in front. That's me. And David will tell you that you're not really supposed to look out of the boat, but I knew that the finish line was coming up. So I was like, oh, I got a peek. And luckily, our boat was already across the line. When actually, you can kind of see here, there's like a bubble line right here by this yellow and black. So boat was already across, and we were good to go. One of the funny things about rowing is, as you can see, we're going backwards. So there's a lot of trust because everyone here is pulling as absolutely hard as they can. And the only person who can see where the heck we're going is this person right in front who's steering us. She's the coxswain. So yes, she also gets a medal because hers is a different skill, but it's a skill. And there's just a lot of trust, and really interesting to kind of even think about how she is the one who's actually telling us where we are in the race. She's kind of the brains of the operation. We're the body. We're the ones trying to go in sync as much as possible. Because in rowing, if you are not going with the person in front of you, with the person behind you, this boat ain't gonna go anywhere. And then you can see these people on bikes. That's our little rowing coaching peloton. So that's where the coaches are. And once you're racing, you can't hear anything that those coaches are saying, no matter how much they're yelling. The only thing you're hearing is this one voice that you trust is leading you in the right, literally leading you in the right direction. And she is already just very in tune with what's happening. So it's definitely a big question of trust. So, here I am celebrating. My coach actually joked that everyone else is dying and Susan's already drinking her celebratory beer. I wasn't. It took 5 more minutes for me to get a beer. No, but it was a really exciting experience. And it was just having that couple of failures early on, and then just having this experience of like, oh yeah, we did it. And of course, the Olympics are very fun. You get to meet a lot of different people. Of course, it's much nicer once you have won. Then it's almost like a relief, like, oh yeah, I did it. This was a pretty cool experience I had. I got to meet Kobe and Dwight Howard at the Olympic Village. I was talking with Dwight, and you see all these different athletes, and everyone's different height, and some people are really short, and you try and guess what sport everyone does. With Dwight, he was so tall and like so much. I was like, this guy definitely plays basketball. I actually have to admit, I'm really embarrassed. I didn't know him at the time. But anyway, we're chatting and I told him, hey, I actually just won the gold yesterday. He's like, oh, that's so cool. I'm showing him my medal. And he actually ended up, he put it on, which is like a huge Olympic faux pas. If you haven't finished your race or game or whatever, you don't put on someone else's medal. But whatever, I said, oh yeah, sure, here, try it on. And he was wearing the medal. And it's funny. So on the medal, it actually says what sport you do or what sport you won in. So it says women's rowing. And he was joking, like, oh, actually, I'm going to steal this medal. And I was like, you don't have to steal the medal. Just go win it yourself in whatever a week. And I was like, plus it says women's rowing on there. And he's like, oh no, I'll spray paint over it. So, we're joking. And that's when actually Kobe Bryant walked up and he saw Dwight with the medal around his neck. He's like, oh, hey, like, where'd you get that from? And Dwight points to me and he's like, oh, it's hers. And then Kobe said, oh, hello, like, who are you? Like, oh, what's your name? I was like, oh, haha, I'm Susan. He's like, oh, cool, I'm Kobe. I was like, I know. And then these two very tall guys. So again, I'm 6'2". These guys are even way taller than me. It was a really cool experience to have these two guys who are like mega star athletes to be looking at my Olympic gold medal and just even think that, like, wow, for like one moment in time, I have something that they want. And we're all here on this Olympic stage, just trying to get like this one thing, no matter what your background, no matter what country you came from, we're trying to get that gold. And it was a really cool experience and a really cool moment for me, just to have this experience of these two guys looking at my gold medal. Of course, they won a week later when I think they beat Spain or something. But I like to think that I inspired them, But so yeah, so it was like, okay, the Olympics happened, cool, won my gold. I have my degree from Penn. All right, now what? And I decided, actually, I ended up going back into the boat, this time in a pair, which is cool. And that's a whole other bit of trust because there's just two people, no coxswain, and you actually steer with your foot. So it's definitely an interesting type of rowing. Hopefully, maybe some of you guys have tried out rowing and you'll have an appreciation for this pair where two people have to perfectly balance this boat and you have to be really in sync. And it was a really cool experience. This time we were on the right side of the wind. Again, these close races are like super exciting and really got my adrenaline going. So it kept going. All right, things were going great for me. Lots of wins, celebrating at the World Championships. And again, so the Olympics are every 4 years, right? But we also say it's every day. And kept racing. 2011, the US, we were on fire. I went back into the 8. Things are good. And then for those of you folks who will be studying the spine, it's not a very good, it's a very pixelated image, but perhaps you can tell that something is a little amiss here. And I ended up herniating my disc, my L4, L5, or in between L4, L5, and had a bulging disc in L5, S1. And that is a really unpleasant, very unpleasant injury. And it wasn't just something that affected my rowing, it was something that affected my everyday. I couldn't even, lift up a plate off the dinner table. And it just, I was just like, holy crap, I've invested all this time. How am I going to go and try and win another Olympic medal? And it was really tough mentally. Now all of a sudden, it wasn't just that we lost by a foot and here we go. It was, all right, I know that I am one of the best athletes here, and I know that I should be in the 2012 Olympics. But there was just a lot of doubt and trying to train and stay positive, which was a pretty big struggle. Spent a lot of time on the bike, and here you'll see we're doing some altitude training. It's what these bags and this machine is for. And somehow, after months of recovery, I made my way back into the London boat. Again, I was one of the last people to be switched and actually officially named, but somehow I made it. And we ended up having a fantastic race, and we won. And yep, there I am, flexing my arm because was so excited. But it was a really cool experience. Again, just those ups and downs, and I really, again, appreciated that up because I had such a big down. Another thing I didn't mention is that after that herniation, just because didn't have as much flexion in my lower back, I ended up having a lot of rib injuries too, which is very common with rowing. So a lot of like rib stress fractures, which is also not a fun injury to have just because you can't really do anything. But here I made it, and I was very excited. So that was my fun rowing career. I actually ended up doing this for 10 years. And after 10 years, I decided, okay, time to retire. My body was finished with this, and went back to school. I ended up going to UCLA for business school, and I now work at a biotech, which is really cool. We make actually, I went from this uniform to now this uniform, and I work at TriLink Biotech, and it's really exciting. So I'm more on the business side, but our company makes a lot of the starting reagents for messenger RNA platform, either like vaccines or different therapeutics. And we actually even make and this is public information, it's in the papers, that we make one of the reagents for the Pfizer vaccine. So it's really a very exciting industry to be in, and I really enjoy it. And it's really cool how I've been able to apply a lot of the competitive and team aspect to my current job. Whoop. Sorry, there we go. We need an excited workplace face here. No, so yeah, it's been really fun. Again, just applying those, and obviously had to use the UCLA degree to kind of get back the wheels turning and get my quant base back. But luckily it was a really good mix. And actually my mom is one of our customers, so that's kind of how we come full circle. And now my mother and her great work with just some of the modifications in the mRNA platform has been really exciting to see that has been a almost game changer for using mRNA as a platform. So it's been a fun time. We kind of, it was a very unfortunate, obviously, pandemic that affected all of us. And hopefully this is something that we can kind of keep crawling out of. And one thing I did want to share was these challenges, even the pandemic, is going to be one of those downs that makes us stronger. Everyone who came out of it is going to be that much stronger. It's one of those challenges that's like even a personal loss that we are going to move forward from. But that is kind of my story, and I'm really glad I got to share it with you all. I also am a parent now of a 4-month-old. I have to think about how old he is. And it's possible to, and I'm now back at the office, and it's possible to handle it all.
Wow, that was a wonderful talk. Maybe tear up a little bit, actually. I had to take my video down. There are tons of questions. Rather than me ask you questions, maybe Ash, maybe you want to pull some questions off the list. I had some questions to ask Susan, but I'm sure there are lots of questions in the audience that you can use rather than a 58-year-old non-Olympic paddler.
Oh, you were world class too.
Not like you.
Was so incredible. A lot of this is just like, what an inspiring story. Thank you for sharing. That's a majority of this. So let me sift through all the thank yous and find, let's see.
I guess one of the questions before is I think that failure concept is runs. It's kind of getting a little bit hackneyed, actually. It's kind of like leadership, but it's real. And I think hearing it from a different perspective, whether it's rowing, academics, your personal life, getting ill. I didn't realize you herniated a disc. I did exactly the same thing and had a 4.5. I had a 5.1 also. These medical things really set us back. But if you had to think about a time where there was a tipping point where you had to go one way or the other, and you came close to not doing what you were doing, and what your thoughts were, because everyone reaches a point where they doubt themselves or wonder if they should continue to go and or think, what am I doing this for? I screwed up my whole life. What were you thinking in that? Because I'm sure it happened. What were you thinking in that point, and how did you just push on and persevere and get through it?
Actually, so I'm thinking of like two instances. The one is when I decided that, okay, well, I had a job offer, but I'm going to go for rowing. And I think there it was like my love of the sport and my passion. And my mom gets asked the same question, like, oh, you had so many rejections and you didn't get the grant. What made you keep going? And she just says, I loved it. And that's what I really wanted to pursue. And even if, you're up against, other people who are going to be this similar height, for example, so where height is no longer an advantage, it doesn't matter because, you love it and you want to be there. And similarly, my breaking point with, stopping rowing and being like, okay, that was my career, was actually when I started to lose on the, within the team, the squad, and I wasn't as upset because I'm a terrible loser, by the way. Ask my mom or my husband or anything. If I am losing, I'm gonna be mad for the rest of the day. And when I started losing on the team and I didn't care as much, then I was like, oof, I'm losing that passion a little bit, and it's time for me to move on. So I think that drive is really what, wakes you up in the morning and gets you going, and even when it's tough.
Tell us about your dad.
Oh, yeah. So my dad was really the glue. So my mom was just toiling away in the lab, and I'm, trying to be a good student and then rower. And he was just always there as the very like grounded individual. And he also always encouraged me, hey, just make sure you're having fun. And he would say to me like, oh, rowing is fun, it's a game, like just remember that. And I'd be like, Dad, like this is my life, what do you mean it's a game? But yeah, he was just always just, even when my mom would, and David, my mom can be very enthusiastic, but it just gets very like almost riled up. And then my dad would be like, okay, everyone calm down, it's going to be okay. And that's always really good to have a figure like that. Maybe it's not someone's parent, but it's just that kind of like friend or mentor who's always bringing you back to reality of like, hey, we're going to keep forging ahead.
It's sort of watching you. If you go back, if you on YouTube for the brain turns and the winter session, Kate has a talk that's on there, and there's a lot of you look very similar, obviously. In fact, I saw pictures of Kate when she was a baby. She looks just like you. It's crazy. Like you can't tell that it's her or you or her.
Oh,
But you obviously picked up a lot of things from your mom. But after meeting your dad, I mean, you always need these types of people in your life, whether it's your parents, in your dad's case, who are sort of the unsung heroes of people's accomplishments. And I think your father is just a really, really unique guy. And
yeah.
so
And I was just gonna say now my husband has taken that role. Like I get really
yeah,
riled
exactly.
up or like overly excited about stuff, and he's just like, okay, everyone breathe.
Yeah. Any questions in the audience you want to pull, Ash?
Yeah, I was just thinking. So this is, I thought, was an interesting one. Did you find that you were always surrounded by people who like supported what you were doing, and like, or did you ever have those moments where there were people that like didn't believe and like told you couldn't do it? And how did you kind of like overcome that and like believe
Yeah.
in yourself?
Honestly, I'm fueled by people who tell me that I can't do something. And even I see it in the corporate world so much where there are also some people who just like end up complaining a lot or whatever, or be like, oh, we can't do that. And I don't know if it's the athletic background or what. I'm like, no, we can. We're gonna like we will. And sometimes it's over petty stuff. Oh, this PowerPoint is due today. And it's like, okay, look, it's great. Let's do that. Um, yeah, I think that sometimes people worry that, oh, it's gonna get to me, or or if you have a lot of voices saying that you can't, or just not even or just doubting. um, but honestly, again, it comes back to that passion. Like if you really strongly believe in what you are doing, then that's all that matters. And sometimes it's not the most economical, like maybe you won't be making the most money or whatever, but if you really like research, for example, then that is more fulfilling for you and for your psyche than you know potentially money.
Someone asked, what would you teach your daughter about, Alejandro Alvarez asked, what would you teach your daughter about what success really is? Great question.
That is a good question. Well, actually, so first correction, I have a son, but
Yeah, well, okay.
just
Screw that up.
But honestly, I think just success is defined by each person and what they want. So for me, success was, okay, getting the gold medal, but then after that, I have to find that next goal. Um, so, and in my mom's eyes, if you had asked her, oh, what would be my success? For her, it would have been like, oh, well, graduating from college and being happy, or finding a good job. Um, so it's really like everyone has to define their own success. And it's okay if it's different from what your parents view or what others view around you. And the other thing is, it's also will change over time. I think that's the thing that we will also sometimes forget, is that, okay, my success, what I defined for myself as success 5 years ago, is totally different than what it is today.
I think also maybe you could talk about the difference between winning the gold medal and the effort and just actually experiencing the training and the racing, the difference between recognition and
Yeah.
the actual medal versus the experience, and that
Yeah,
everyone
exactly.
wants, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's funny, and I know my mom keeps getting this question too, like, oh, what do you think if you won a Nobel Prize and whatever? And my mom keeps saying, like, my goal was for this technology to be good for at least one person, and it's more that, all right, she went through those struggles, and now, hey, these vaccines, the Pfizer, the Moderna, both institute what she had been working on, some of her discoveries. And so it's the same with the rowing. It's like, okay, the medal's really cool and it's fun to show to Dwight Howard. But at the end of the day, I was an Olympic champion no matter what. And I had that incredible race and all of the 4 years that went into that one 6-minute race. So it's all of that lead up, those ups and downs, those all go into that win.
Shrink, I think, was probably a little less than 6 minutes.
Okay. 5:58.
Yeah. But and the other thing is, I mean, I kind of had it when I heard about I knew Kate, your mom, had made this great discovery and no one paid attention to it. And then she started to start a company. I knew this whole story leading up to COVID, and I hadn't talked to her in a couple of years. And when I saw that we talked to Donna around the time the vaccine was, this is early COVID, that there might be making a vaccine. And I spoke to Kate, and I remember feeling like a sense of, I'd made a mistake, that had I stayed at Penn, well, how different my life would have been. I kind of left on, even with someone else who decided to leave and asked me to go with them. I was supposed to stay and work with your mom forever. And I was going to be her MD collaborator. I mean, I could have been like Drew, and blah, blah, blah. Drew Weitzman's her collaborator. And I remember thinking, well, the truth was I didn't want to be a bench researcher. I wanted to be a neurosurgeon. And, maybe I could have winged it and done both, but there's no way that my emotional kind of focus was on doing what Kate did every day. I was a different personality. I like taking care of patients. I like the physical act of operating. And it gave me a lot of, solace, and you don't miss anything. Yeah, it would have been great to win a Nobel Prize, but it's not the Nobel Prize and the attention that really matters. It's what you're doing every day. And I think that's a manifestation of, that's why it's so important to find what it is that makes you happy, and then just do the best you can at it and keep your head in the boat.
Yeah.
And then just go for it.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Someone asked what you thought about Olivia Jade. She's the one who faked being a coxswain to get into USC.
Well, actually, you know where she also went wrong? She took pictures of herself on the rowing machine, which just didn't make sense. And I saw some of those. I was like, now you're just doing a bad job of even trying to fake it.
One thing I want to push, make sure that everybody follows you on Instagrams. It's Susan hard _ Francia. Hopefully you guys will all follow Susan. Her Insta site used to be more rowing. Now it's all baby, but
I know. It's nothing too exciting, folks. Sorry.
But going back to the Olivia Jade question, I think that's just the opposite of what you need to do. And so just if you could comment on those two bookends.
Yeah, it is that's her trying to get the gold without any of the hard work in between. But you know what? That's also, for that young lady, that's also not fulfilling. Like, that's sure, maybe she would have gotten in, but she also would have known deep down, I didn't earn this. I didn't deserve to be here. And then, she didn't even make it through school, and she probably got kicked out or whatever. But even despite the humiliation, I think it's that deep down knowing that you didn't put in what was required to be there.
It says how to ignore monetary rewards when we look at success. The money's needed for everyday survival.
I mean, shoot, look at my parents made it here with $1,200 and were able to start a life with $1,200 and paying rent and eating food. Okay, I get it. That was in the 80s. But, you can do a lot with very little. And, we recently did an ESPN, just and then OTL show, whatever. If you go on ESPN, you'll see our family story. But that's kind of our theme is, again, I'm telling you, it's more fulfilling to just do what you are loving and show up every day where it's not a job than just chase money.
Yeah, I mean, I went back to visit your mom back in Pennsylvania at their house, and it's such a humble place. It's got the grill outside and the garbage and the driveway, and there's nothing fancy at all. Your dad has his basement full of tchotchkes, and you realize that life is just it's more important to just focus on what floats your boat. And other things may happen, if you do that, you're likely to be successful anyway. But especially seeing what happened afterwards, where
Yeah.
the whole world descended on your mom and she never changes. Like, she's just kind of non-plot, like, what am I don't need all this attention. And
Yeah.
I think it's a real lesson. What was it like when you, after the gold medal? I know that it's you probably got some attention. Olympic athletes don't always get the attention they deserve. But I remember talking to your mom about the difficulties of, your health insurance, working for Home Depot. You didn't have a job, and you almost had to stay on the Olympic team just so you could get health insurance or something.
Yeah. It's, it's actually, so when I graduated from Penn and I had the job offer, and then I joined the US rowing team, I actually had a part-time job at Foot Locker.
That's what it was.
And it was Foot Locker. And I remember filling out the application. And actually at Penn, I had like submatriculated, gotten this like an extra master's degree. It was a master's in criminology. I originally thought I would go into the FBI. But anyway, I on the application, you have to write down your education. And the woman looked at me, she's like, I think you're very overqualified to be here at the Foot Locker. And I was like, it's okay. It was like, okay, is this something that I just know I need to do? And, I didn't mind it. It was part of the grind. And that's okay to have that grind. Because I knew that the big picture was the Olympics. So it really wasn't a bad thing.
You clearly love rowing to keep going. Did you ever hate it when things got hard? Did you ever have to learn to love it again? That's from Mishka Manchanda.
Yeah, no, and that is a really good point. And actually, this is something that when I look at athletes who go back for like more Olympics and keep trying, I'm really impressed at athletes who can keep having that success, because it's no longer, even your mindset changes. It's no longer like, oh, I have this dream. I'm gonna go to the Olympics. It's okay, well, I've already been to the Olympics and we did well, and now I have a big target on my back and people expect me to be great. Like, how do you even like motivate yourself again to get up for that? And again, I just really love the sport. I love being out there on the water and going fast. I liked my teammates, and it was just fun. The training was just really fun. And yeah, and then again, when I knew it was time to retire, when I was like, well, this isn't fun and I'm losing, and doesn't bother me as much.
I think this is a good one. Dr. Linger, you're muted, but a couple people have asked about like who your mentors have been and how did you find them? And like, I thought that was a cool one. Other than your mom, probably, and dad.
Yeah, actually, my mom was, I know I can't really choose her as a mentor, but she was a really good mentor. And she, even though she herself gets very excited and passionate about her science, when it came to my rowing, she never really pushed me as a parent to like be better or pull harder. She would be like, okay, that's a great result, even if it wasn't great. And really, I would say I didn't really have mentors per se that had like come before me and I, check in with them. It was more my peers. My peers helped motivate me. My peers picked me up when I was down, or, I think it was really just the people around me, and not necessarily that they were always my best friends or whatever, but we just trusted each other a lot and knew that we needed each other to go and win that gold. Yeah. So really the team helps.
One's question is, did you have tips on managing college as a student athlete?
On managing what?
College as a student athlete.
Oh, honestly, being on the team helped me just with the time management. I was like, okay, we have a race. I have to miss class on Friday, then I need to make sure I'm on top of my studies. Whereas before I was a little scattered, so I think actually it helped a lot to have the team, or just being part of the rowing team there helped a lot. Um, yeah, and then I decided to try for this master's, and yeah, it was a very cool experience. I'm glad, like at Penn, I feel like I had a lot of opportunities to try different things.
Somebody asked some of your Georgia Reed asked what's some of your daily habits that help you to be successful in all areas of your life. I'm sure that exercise is one of them.
Yeah, I really now I don't row as much. I just go and I jog around. And it's funny going from being so competitive in sports to now just like it's exercise. I had to stop like wearing a watch. I had to change my expectations even and just go out and exercise just for the fun of it, not because, I was being timed or something. Um, but yeah, I definitely try to exercise. It's really hard now with a 4-month-old. He sucks the life right out of me. But but yeah, I think that and just now my new team are my coworkers at TriLink, and just trying to achieve those goals.
One of the funny stories, and I think I've mentioned this to you when we were talking before the talk, was Kate, when she was unknown, she was the same person and she'd done the same research. And she would go to give a science talk somewhere at Penn or whatever, and she'd be introduced as Kate Carrico, the mother of Susan Francia, because you were known and you are well known, and certainly at Penn in the
Very well
sports
known.
world, gold medalist, mother of a gold medalist. It's like mother of dragons in Game of Thrones. And then now I understand you walk around your work and, oh, Susan, her mother's Kate Carrico.
Yeah.
Did you ever feel that transition? How did you react to that? Was that
Actually, I had this guy who was people asked me, they send me, especially from Europe, requests for autographs. And this man had emailed me and I had sent him an autograph, a picture with the autograph. And he emailed me and he was like saying something, and I was trying to sort through this email, and he's like, no, I really would like this autograph. And I wrote back to him, I said, sir, I already sent you a signed picture. And he said, oh no, I don't want it of you. I want it of your mom. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, sure. My mom really doesn't want the fame. You know her. She enjoys getting other people passionate about science, but she doesn't want the rest of it.
So I guess just to finish up, maybe for this group, basically where you're headed now, how you ended up in your current job,
Mhm.
and what's like to be a woman in STEM, what you're actually doing every day, and what you see for your future career, and to try to encourage these kids young
Yeah.
adults to be like you.
Yeah, so our company does manufacture, they're a manufacturer. And so it's really neat to work with different customers like startup, biotechs. We work with mid-sized pharma, big pharma. We actually manufacture mRNA for phase 1 clinical trials. And so it's really cool to be a part of different projects. I think that's one of the nice things about so it's called a CMO, contract manufacturing organization. And we get to work with scientists every day and be excited about their projects and try and make their mRNA or oligo or whatever they're working on. And I ended up in this job a little bit by accident. This is why it's really important to have good contacts and just always be friendly and just, just introduce yourself to lots of people. I was giving rowing lessons to this elderly gentleman, and he really liked my enthusiasm, and he's like, hey, come work for my company. And at that time, so he was working in ophthalmology, and he was like, "Oh, I work for this ophthalmology. It's a CRO." I was like, "I don't even know how to spell ophthalmology, sir." And he was like, "It's okay. We'll teach you everything you need to know." And just being open to new ideas even. And so that's how I ended up working with this ophthalmology specialized contract research organization. And then from there, I went into manufacturing. Yeah, so it was all kind of along the business route, but learning the science as I go. And my mom
I
also.
mean, I've understood that Kate's company is contracting to you guys now.
Yeah, for some of it. Yeah,
Amazing.
yeah.
Well, Susan,
It was fun.
this was just phenomenal. I mean, it was better than I thought it would be. And
Oh, good.
you're a tremendous, amazing person. And I obviously I haven't seen you in a long time, but the coasts, but I always look forward to hearing from you and hearing your success, and really can't wait to see what happens the next year or two with you and your mom and the story that gets out, because it's really probably one of the most unique. I'm hoping for a movie, as you know. I tried, I couldn't convince you, but I understand. Kate told me that may happen, so I'm hopeful.
Yeah, we'll see. Again, I don't know if we want all of that. So, but I think she might be putting out a book. So at
Yeah.
the very least, we'll have a book. Someone will have to really invest some time to read that. You
Yeah.
can read that, David. I'm sure you'll get an autograph copy.
Yeah, I hope so. I'll get both of you to autograph it.
Oh, awesome. Thank you guys so much for having me. I really appreciate
Thanks
it.
for taking the time. It's really impactful. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you.
That was so crazy. She is such a good